So in this tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you where you're going to be putting your hook into the foundation chain to be completing your stitches, as well as showing you the single crochet and the turning chain. So grab your yarn and hook and let's get started. So first thing we're going to do is loop onto our hook, just like we learned in the first video. If you haven't watched it yet, please go back and learn some of the basic stitches, including how to loop on and how to do your foundation chain. From here, we're going to chain 21. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Now the reason that we're doing 21 is that I cannot crochet into this stitch. Doing that will actually just cause a loop around my hook. So in order to get 20 stitches across, I need to have that one additional stitch. That number changes when you go up in stitch sizes. So we'll talk more about that later. But for now, I want to show you this chain. We have the V here that we discussed in the last video. Now, right in here is just one strand. And when I take my hook out, you can really see that hole better. I'm going to move my hook for a moment. Right across here, there's kind of like this little X. We're going above that into the hole below the one strand. Now, I'm just going to put that back on. We are going to be crocheting into the second chain from the hook because the first chain has our yarn already coming out. So the second chain, that little hole right there, insert your hook and yarn over from back to front. In my case, I'm right-handed, so it follows from the right to the left. And I'm going to pull that through. So now I have 2 loops on my hook. You want to ensure that these are about the same size so that your stitch is even. From here, we yarn over, do our little flip, and pull through both loops. That is a single crochet. So from here, we're going to move to our next stitch. The little hole is right here. So we're going to insert our hook and yarn over. Now what I've seen in the past is some people grabbing it from here like a shortcut, because it will still give a loop on your hook. However, that will complicate things in the future. So it's really important that you get the knack of the yarn over and pull through. Same size, yarn over, and pull through both. There's one loop on the hook. Moving down. And I try to hold this part of my work as well as this. It kind of gives me better control over the loop, and I can kind of work it in there really nice and easy. So if I don't do that, it tends to turn, right? And it can create some issues getting it in there. So from here, I just line up the tip to the hole and I push my hook through and I go behind the yarn to pick it up, and then I bring it through, and then I go behind my yarn again to grab it, and I pull it through. Now, in some cases, if maybe I've done one of these too tight, a cheat is you can actually use this part of the hook as well. So if this was too tight, I might just squeeze it through this way and then just go, okay, now I'm there. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through two. So we are going to do that all the way across the chain. Now I'm going to admit to you, crocheting into the chain is one of my least favorite parts of crochet, next to weaving in the tails and sewing pieces together. It does get easier as you go because the bigger your project gets, the more you have to hold on to and the faster you can end up going. So when I go through, I just am already behind the yarn, so then I can grab it and pull it through. Again, my hook is facing me and my thumb, so that when I go through, I just bring that hand down so the hook goes up, and then I kind of just reverse that. So I bring it down, I grab the yarn from behind, and I pull that through. And then I grab it from behind, and I pull it through again. The hook goes in, I grab the yarn, the hook comes out, I wrap the yarn, I turn the hook, and I bring it through. And I'm kind of still holding it here and here. As I said, in the future, it's kind of like when we started and we had to hold the tail, but the more we chained, the more we got to let go of that and just hold these two fingers. The same happens the bigger our project gets. So hopefully your stitches are all looking the same. And we're using a nice light grip. Okay, same as when we were chaining. This is flexible, it's not too tight. We're just holding it so that it's nice and tight here. This moves up and down. Our finger is on top of the loop. Excuse me. I'm just moving along. In, grab. So looking at your work at this point, hopefully it's not curling too much. Now even my work has a little bit of a curl to it. That's just because the single crochet is a smaller stitch, so it's a little bit on the tighter side. So now we're going into the last stitch here. That, pull I know one thing I want to remind you is it's a slip stitch, so you can actually give yourself a bit more room. Pull that through. Oh, I can already feel I have a snag. So I can tell because it's not moving. And if I really look at it right there, this piece is not part of this bunch of yarn. So I'm actually going to remove my hook, pull that stitch, reinsert my hook here so I don't pull too much, and completely remove that. I'm going to go in again, pull through, yarn over, carefully pull through too, and now I can see that I am good. And from here, remember it's a slip stitch, so just tighten that right back up again. And congratulations, that is our first row. So hopefully it's straight and again, not curling. Now, mine has a touch of curl to it. I can make it curl a bit. If every time you release it, it kind of goes like this, you're gonna want to release a little bit of your tension. You're going a bit too tight. Lighten up your stitches, loosen up the grip, loosen up the loop a little bit. You want to have just that tiny bit of room right there, right in there, so that that hook can pass through easily. Okay, so the first most important rule, in my opinion, is to let your hook do the work. The second is to count your stitches. So I'm going to turn my work this way and look for these little V's again. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So this is going to be our final stitch. In doing backwards counting for the first time as you're learning, it also helps you so that you do get to see where your final stitch is. So now that we have completed that, in order to turn around, we chain 1. Again, that will change depending on your stitch. For a single crochet, it is always chain 1. At this point, most people just turn their work and begin to work into this stitch. Personally, I don't like the twist in the chain, so I have gotten into the habit of taking out my hook, putting it in the other way, and then flipping my work. Please don't feel that you need to do this. It is an extra step that I didn't even take in the beginning, but after a while, there were some projects where I needed to really crochet into that chain, and I found that the twist made it complicated. That's why I decided to start doing it and add it in. Okay, so now we have chain 1 and we've turned our work. Now it's a lot easier to see the hole that we're going into. This one right here. Above will be the V, and you will now have 2 stitches on your hook. So I'm again going to just open up my work a little bit using 1, 2, 3, and 4, just like before, and insert my hook. I'm going to take the yarn from behind and pull it back through that stitch. So I have 2 loops on my hook. This automatically puts me back in my starting position, so I yarn over, turn that hook, and bring it through 2 loops. I move down to the next stitch. It is right here. So if you look closely, there's the V from the top. So there's that piece there. And then right below it is kind of like these dashes. We're really aiming in between those dashes. When I really open my work up, you can see it right there. In between this and this, I go right there. So let's do a few more of those. Now that I'm about midway, I want to kind of describe what these are called. So this piece here, this front V, that's what we refer to as the front loop. This piece, I go from the top down the regular spot that my hook would exit. This is referred to as the back loop. So if you have a project that says front loop only, or abbreviated as FLO, you would go into just the front loop and continue your stitch that way. What this does is it will provide, or create, I should say, it will create a ridge, a line all the way down. Let me do a few of those so that you can see. Now you don't have to do these, but if you wanted to continue, do some front loop only, just to see what that's like. Do one more. Okay, so from the front, that's how it looks. And when I flip it over, see how here there's a little line? So these are all the back loops. You can actually go back and crochet into those later on if you want to. Or you could just continue doing this and it would provide stripes along your work. Doing back loops only would do the opposite, and you would have these lines on the right side of your work. So I'm going to remove those. There we go. Reinsert my hook. So to do that, from right to left into the loop. The loop shouldn't be twisted or anything. It kind of has its shape there. So just right in. Pick up that yarn and continue down our work. Remember when we counted backwards, this was our final stitch. So this would be 19. And it's important because you see this border, especially in larger crochet stitches, this can start pulling down and it will actually look like you're finished, but your project will get a little smaller and then you'll have an edge that kind of dips in. And like one of my first projects dips in. So we're going to tuck away. This one can be kind of tricky to get into if I'm being honest. So sometimes I use the back of the hook trick and wiggle it right in through there. Okay. And then I just come out and I make sure that my hook is straight and my yarn is straight, my project is straight, and I yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through too. And there you have it. Again, your project shouldn't really be twisting too much. It should be nice and light. Especially using, this is the 5mm hook, so it doesn't make it too tight. Now let's go back and just count our stitches. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So there you have it. As a reminder, when you get to the end, chain 1 and turn your work. Crochet into that spot. You can continue going back and forth all the way as long as you want. You can create a washcloth, a dishcloth, or a scarf. So here is my little swatch of single crochet. Now, one reason you may do a swatch as well is to gauge the size of your work so that if a pattern tells you this is the size it should be, using this hook, you can see if your stitches and your work achieves the same gauge, so the same size swatch after you're done a small instruction within that pattern. Again, I will get into that more when we do pattern reading, but that is one reason that you may do a swatch, because if you need to increase or decrease the hook size, it's way better to know early on. Okay, so you see how my work is curling up at the corners here? That is totally normal, so I don't want you to get upset if your work does the same. Actually, you should be kind of proud. So basically, because the single crochet is such a tight stitch, it will tend to pull the fabric in a little bit while these stitches settle. Remember that the yarn is fresh off the ball, so it still needs to break itself in and figure out where it wants to lie permanently. That being said, some people do block their work, which would basically be putting in a small pin into this stitch up here and another down here to stretch. And then we go into the sides and we stretch our corners so that eventually the entire piece is fairly pinned and stretched out. Soak it, spray it, steam it, and then let it sit for a day or two, sometimes longer, and eventually the stitches will settle. Most of my work, I don't bother blocking. It's usually too large. I tend to do sweaters and blankets a lot, so I don't find the need to block. You can actually see how just playing with it during this video has already started to settle these corners down. So I just kind of let it work itself in with time. I fidget with it, I pull on it, I do different things. Blocking does take a lot of time. My garments are large. Maybe one day, but I'm okay with this. Anyways, so this is what you could use to do like a washcloth or something. So you see we have nice straight edges. Now I might go a little wider, a little taller, so that I can get my whole hand on it. But this would make a wonderful washcloth. And if you wanted a good, like a thicker scarf, this is actually a really good way to do it. You could use a thicker yarn. And because it's already such a tight stitch, it would really prevent the wind from getting through. So there's a lot of different things that you can do just knowing this one little stitch. All right, so I'm gonna end it here. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching this far. Up next, we are going to learn the half double crochet and the double crochet.